Donna, ready? We'll go ahead and call the Ellis County Commission meeting to order. All rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Donna, please call the roll.
Commissioner Butch Flyer,
Present.
Chair Dean Hazelhorst,
Present.
Commissioner Dustin Law.
Present.
Chair, you have a quorum.
Thank you. Any changes to the order of business this evening? I do believe we have 3 executive sessions, correct? Yes? Dustin, Butch, nothing?
No changes.
Move on to prior minutes. We only have one, May 20th, 2019, regular meeting. Any additions or corrections?
No.
Stand approved as presented, Donna. Need a motion for the consent agenda items A through G.
I'd make a motion for the consent agenda items A through G as presented.
I second that.
We have Donna, we have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries 3-0. Issues from persons not on the order of business this evening. Do we have anyone? Seeing none, I don't think we have any introduction of new employees. Next. Oh, maybe we do. Sorry, Bill.
Bill Ring, Public Works. I have 2 of them that are on their way.
Oh, well, you can
So
introduce
they
them
should
after a bit.
Right.
That'll be fine.
Thank you.
Thanks for pointing that out. We'll come back to you. We'll do the High Plains Mental Health Center annual report.
Good evening. I'm Walt Hill. I'm the director at High Plains Mental Health Center. Just was thinking, I've been around for a little while, celebrating my 40th anniversary working at High Plains. Moved here in 1978 to go to graduate school. So I've been around a little while. I knew some young county counselors at that time. So this is our annual report from High Plains Mental Health Center. I have with me this evening backup, Joanne Wilhelm, Roy Husted, who's an alternate or at-large board member for High Plains, selected by the board to fill a special position that the state asks us to have for someone who identifies that they've had services. And then a lady who usually used to sit up here at the front table, Kaylee Connor, who we have hired. Kaylee's been on board with us now for about a year, and she does public information, education, and something called mental health first aid, which is training in a community on how to deal with individuals who are having mental health issues. So they have all the answers. I just have some quick overview. In your packet, you have several pages with our annual report. I want to turn to a document that's second in the packet. It's called Agreement Among Counties to Participate in Community Mental Health Services. Often in our presentations, I mention to counties that High Plains is established as an interlocal agreement among the 20 counties in northwest Kansas. We exist at the pleasure of those 20 counties. Not that we're anticipating it, but if we were to ever become insolvent or bankrupt, you would get the assets of High Plains Mental Health Center because you are basically the last in line. You're the owners. You appoint board members. You have, and many counties have, different relationships with entities that they fund, contractual, informal. This is a different kind of relationship that statute allows for mental health centers to be established as a quasi-municipality, as an arm of county government. The other ways are you can contract, or in 2 counties in the state, mental health is actually a county department, Sedgwick County and Johnson County. I talk about this almost every year at all the counties. I just thought I would give you a copy of the actual document, and I've been giving this to all of the counties as a reminder of that relationship that we have together, that we are part of you. This one goes back to signator was Chairman Chris Channel, who was in one of these seats at that time. So it's an evergreen contract, so you don't have to worry about anything. I just wanted to explain the nature of our relationship and how we may be a little different. If you turn back one page, this document reflects the services we provided last year to Ellis County residents. We track this by the county of residence address in our system. Someone potentially from Ellis County could go to Phillipsburg and receive services, but we track based on where people reside. Last year, we saw an increase of 13% in the number of individuals from Ellis County who we saw compared to 2017, up to over 2,000 individuals, the highest that it has ever been. That represents approximately a third of the total individuals that we saw last year across our 20 counties. The middle graph shows the history of funding, and just below that is a summary of the cost of care to individuals in Ellis County, which was almost $3.4 million in services based on our cost to deliver those services. When we do an analysis of return on investment, that's about a 12-fold return on your investment. So for your roughly $280,000 in county funding, we deliver nearly $3.4 million in services to your citizens. We do that by combining your funding with a subsidy for those who are at lower income levels, with insurance reimbursements, much like your EMS, you bill for the services, so it's a combined effort with Medicaid, private insurance, what individuals themselves pay for the services. 51% of individuals that we saw from Ellis County in 2018 had family incomes under $25,000 for the year. So we don't exclusively serve individuals at a lower income strata, but that is part of our mission, and in fact, that is what we use county funding to do, is to provide the subsidy so that someone may not pay the full cost, which may be $150 for an hour of counseling, but may pay a base fee of just $20 for an hour, and we use other funding to make up the difference. If you turn back to this page, this has an overview of the number of individuals in each county that we served in 2018, some history of numbers of individuals we've served. Unfortunately, that number is increasing. In one way, we're concerned about the increase in demand for services, but we're also glad that the word is out, because in general, most people believe those issues were out and about. It's simply a matter that people are recognizing that, not responding to stigma, but responding to our efforts to educate that it's okay to seek mental health care. On the next page at the top, there's a graph that shows our history of funding by source. This is an important point I want to make because of some recent changes with the legislature. In 2006, we began seeing significant cuts in state funding that underwrite the cost of care for individuals have the greatest clinical need, individuals who have been at Larned State Hospital, who were going to Larned State Hospital, patients who might need medication services. So since 2006, we had over $1 million in cuts in those funds. And over the past 2 years, the legislature has restored about $877,000 in mental health reform funds. Mental health reform was an effort to move people out of institutions and serve them in the community. People who are severely and persistently mentally ill, which means they have the highest need, individuals with schizophrenia, bipolar disorder, severe intractable depression, who otherwise in past decades would have gone to the state hospital to be cared for. And now they can live in the community with these supports. The reason I bring this up is that these funds from the state have strings attached. They must be used for that population, and that population only. We cannot spread it to other populations. So we have a pool of services here with state funding, and then we have other services, traditional outpatient counseling, that have to stand on their own with just county funding as subsidy. So the good news is the county or the state is stepping up finally to their commitment in 1989 to fund all of this. We're finally back, but we have to segregate out the services that we provide to roughly 3,500, 4,000, 4,500 individuals where we only have subsidy from counties. And if we have margin in the specialized populations, because there is Medicaid, we can use that to help fund. Generally, our budget runs in the neighborhood of $150,000 margin out of a $10 million budget. So there isn't a lot of margin left. We're a nonprofit. We aren't here to make money. We have to keep our head above water and be good stewards. But it will remain a challenge. And in that light, I want to recognize the challenge that you all face, and all of our counties do. This marks the last county commission meeting of the 20 counties that I've gone out to. So I've met with all of the other counties, Russell County this morning. Many have similar, either in quantity or quality, or the angst that they are having around their budget issues. So we sympathize, and next week we'll talk about where we're at with county funding overall and where that's headed. We do appreciate very much the support of Ellis County. You represent and are seen as the leaders in the region in many respects. Ellis County is, be it shopping, healthcare, but in terms of funding for mental health, other counties look at what you do, and it's by far, 2/3 of our payroll is here in Ellis County. 1/3 of our patients are here in Ellis County. So Ellis County is of significant importance to us. One of the areas that I want to end in talking about is we have a responsibility to also inform and educate the public about important issues, be it mental health first aid, of how to deal with individuals who are having challenges. We've done trainings with law enforcement, EMS. We also are seeing increasing concern about the ag economy. I call it the agriculture business sector. Beyond just the farmer, the whole ag sector is of concern given the dynamics with all that's happening there. I listen to the radio about soybean prices, and I'm afraid I understand it, but we are very concerned about the stress that farmers, ranchers, people in the agribusiness sector are experiencing, and we're embarking on an effort for public education to make people aware that this is an issue and that there is hope. And that's the key, is hope in the heartland. That we're distributing these at co-ops, at extension offices. K-State has taken about 1,000 of these to distribute around. We're doing radio ads with on Ken Rogers' Ag Network to get the word out on radio, because that is, really important way that the ag community often gets news. And I think we'll be doing some additional things that we'll be talking about with you. If I could leave these with you. If you know of others who could use those, Kaylee is our contact. And I do want to mention an initiative this year that we started, and that is a partnership with your health department, and in providing a therapy site 1 day a week at the health department, where we send a staff member who can see patients who your staff refer for treatment, in kind of a one-stop shop. We've also done this 3 days a week with Hayes Med at the Hayes Family Practice Office. We find if we go out to where patients are, they're more likely, if their doctor says, hey, you ought to go talk to a counselor, if that counselor's down the hall, or if Marin or whoever, the nurse at the health department, says, you really ought to check this out, there'll be someone there and they can be seen there, as opposed to having to walk in the door of a mental health center, which still sometimes has some degree of stigma. So we find one-stop shopping works a whole lot better, and that's been very successful, and we appreciate working with Carrie on that initiative. We, in fact, think there's a real opportunity in working with county health departments throughout our 20 counties, and doing some education and outreach, and being identified much more with county health departments in various counties. We are co-located like this. So I'll stop at that point. Appreciate your support, appreciate your board members that you designate to serve on our board, Butch, Tom Drees, and thank you very much. Be glad to answer any questions or address any comments.
Dustin, any questions?
I just kind of wanted to go over a little bit. The one graph that we have on this page, I imagine it's supposed to be color-coded, but I'm trying to wrap my mind around fee-for-service versus, oh, okay, here's in color. So, the couple things that, first I just want to say that I think that one of the few places that I think government really needs to step in life is in mental health care. I believe that just looking at annual family income and the percentage that you serve, you can see why this type of thing is important in a rough ag economy and stuff like that. It's been something that I've been concerned about as we talk about outside agency funding. Just the idea that, my fear is that we look at outside agency funding as somehow spending that isn't as important for whatever reason, and I don't believe that. I think it could be some of the best money we spend and best return on investment that we get. So it's going to be a tough thing for us to weigh in the coming months, but it's something that is in the back of my mind, and mental health probably at the very top of that. Just for the sake of turning people that have an illness that may or may not have, like you said, some sort of stigma to it. It's still an illness that can be treated, and there's no shame in getting treated for it. So once you get treated, it's amazing. You just go back to living life, and becoming a real productive citizen again. So. That being said, it hits me a little bit to see that this is the highest number that you've ever served. And I think it's something that's been weighing on my mind. But like you said, I appreciate that you guys are getting out there and making sure you find these people before the bitter end, or before we end up having them in jail or institutionalized, or even
Or
worse,
worse.
doing something to themselves. Yes. I appreciate the report, and is definitely something that weighed on me seeing these numbers.
Thank you.
Butch, anything?
Yeah, Walt, you still provide a lot of jail services?
Yes, we do. Last year, we provided $27,000 in services at the jail and courthouse, the highest among all the counties. We do not charge the county for any of those services that we provide at the jail. I know some health providers do charge the jails. We do not. We're part of you, so.
I know when I was working for the county, working up at the jail, I would probably collaborate with nursing from High Plains Mental Health on a daily basis.
Yes.
And there was always inmates who weren't taking their meds, were taking them wrong. They had to be adjusted. It was a constant issue. And oftentimes, as I'd go up to the jail in the morning, the jailers were waiting for a counselor to come up from mental health to try to get someone on the right path again. And I know it's a very needed service. If you weren't available, I don't think the sheriff would have much other option.
Right.
So, yeah, it's a very worthy service.
Yeah, we're now entering the second year where we placed a telemedicine unit at the law enforcement center. That's used a great deal. We appreciate the cooperation with the sheriff's department in helping, but it also helps in doing some work when they bring someone in, that they're in their own turf, not coming to some outside office. That I think there's a real advantage. Plus, they can bring inmates down, not have to transport them over to our office even.
Thank you for everything your agency does, Walt. Thanks for being here
Thank you
tonight.
very much. See you next week.
And for all of you coming. We'll move on to discharge of fireworks in unincorporated areas. Darren Myers.
Good evening, Commission. Darren Myers, Director of Fire and Emergency Management. Two items tonight. First one is for the discharge, or the allowance of discharge in the unincorporated areas of Ellis County for the 2019 Independence Day weekend. I guess it's during the week, but in the previous years past, we've had a new resolution created, which didn't necessarily have to be created each year. We just started one each year. And then at the first meeting in June of every year, the commission has then made the decision to either allow or not allow the discharge of the fireworks within the certain date frame that we choose. And in the past, we've chosen the same dates as the city of Hayes, just to kind of help eliminate confusion, keep them all the same, or keep us the same as the city. This year, the city of Ellis and Victoria, I think Victoria is still working on theirs, but they have, I believe, the intent to allow them to be discharged, but they have not voted yet. And we've talked to the surrounding counties around Ellis County. I believe Trigo, Rush, Rooks, and Russell, and they all plan on the allowance of fireworks as well. So that decision is up to you as the commission to make the motion if the commission wants to allow the discharge of fireworks in the unincorporated areas.
Thoughts, commissioners?
Say what?
Any thoughts?
You don't have any concerns about fires, do you, at this point?
Flooding, maybe?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's drying out, but you know, you can never tell what's going to happen in the next 30 days. I would not say that I'm against the discharge of fireworks, but the back of my mind is being in public safety. One accident, one fire, one property lost, one death, whatever it may be, weighs hard on trying to say, yes, let's allow fireworks. But at the same time, I hate to put these restrictions on the public. But we are, you know, it's very wet this year and it's green out there, so it kind of eases your concern a little bit.
I think there's some discussion in here about how responsible people have been in the past, and so we've been pretty lucky with that. And you know, for me, it's we've gotten raid, and let's let people celebrate the wonderful country that we live in. And I mean, there's nothing better for me sitting around my block and seeing fireworks going off in Hayes. So I imagine the people in the county should get just the same amount of fun and celebration as those in the city would. And I like the idea of not confusing it with what the city of Hayes is doing, or Ellis or Victoria. So hopefully Victoria is on board too.
They'll keep theirs separate. Ellis and Victoria will have separate times, so they'll actually
change
three
time.
different dates.
Okay.
But, so if we go with the city, they'll stay with only 3 dates, is Hayes, Ellis, and Victoria.
Okay.
Time frames.
Perfect.
Are you making a motion?
Yeah, I'll make a motion. I move per resolution 2018-05 to relax the discharge portion of this resolution in the unincorporated areas of Ellis County on July 2nd, 3rd, and 4th between the hours of 10 a.m. and 11 p.m.
Yeah, I'll second that motion.
Donna, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries 3-0. Next item, Darren, use agreement with fire training facility, City of Hayes.
As the commission is aware, several years ago, we applied for a grant. The city of Hayes applied for a grant, and it was received $272,000 from the Hanson Foundation to build a fire training facility. Since then, it's been taken several months to about a year now for the construction of the facility out there. However, now that it is next to being done, it's time to be able to start going out there and do live fire training and using the tower facility for different training evolutions. And I've kind of been in the talks with the City of Hayes Fire Department and letting them know that we will not be out there using the facility until we have some type of use agreement stating the liabilities and concerns, the damages and such, if something were to happen. And this document was created by the city, reviewed by their city attorney, as well as I've also forwarded off to Mr. Jeter and our county administrator to review. The only thing that I did notice when I was sitting down here this evening is the use agreement specifically states the county fire department and the sheriff's office. We both overlooked EMS. I did call, that's why I stepped in a little bit late. Their intent is not to forget EMS, to allow them to use it if possible, if they want to. So we can either draft a new one.
I don't think we should let Carrie burn things.
I agree with Phil.
What they may be interested in is when we're out there doing high angle rescues or such, they may be on the tower, so there's limited places where they could be injured. Also in the future, we're working with Fort Hayes and NCK to build a roughly 1,600 square foot classroom. So there'll be a classroom facility out there that they may be able to use to host classes. SO could be using it for, we'll have a concrete structure out there, the burn building and train facility, so they might be able to do some tactical exercises or such. It's up to each department to how they want to use it, but we can either draft a new one or a separate one to include EMS if the commission wishes to move along with this.
I mean, I'd say go ahead and get it changed, and we'll just do it next week or something. That'd be my suggestion, get it to EMS.
Yeah.
Yeah, that way
This
it'd be
doesn't
easy.
actually require a motion, so
Okay.
if you're all fine with the chair signing it once it's revised.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah.
That'll be fine.
Awesome. Thank you to Dane G. Hansen. That's going to be an excellent facility. I think people all over northwest Kansas are going to use that and utilize that facility. So thank you to them for that.
We do have some plans coming up for the use. Actually, the first live burn that we're going to use it for is Wednesday night. They're going to go out there and do some training in the burn building. And we've applied for a Kansas State Firefighters Association fire school for later this year, which will bring firefighters from all over the state, but mainly northwest Kansas, to be able to do some stuff in that facility as well. So there's some good things out there. And the one thing I didn't mention that was part of this, the noxious weed department has agreed to come out there and spray the facility to keep the weeds away from the facilities, the rocks, and as well as around the fence. I've talked to Gary House out there at the noxious weed department. He's in favor of it, and we've also had discussion with Mr. Bill Ring so that he is aware of it as well. And there's very low cost to do that, just the cost of the chemicals basically, but if that ever changes in the future, we'll readdress it and figure out a way to pay it between another avenue.
Thank you, Darren. Go ahead and sign it.
If there's no changes, I'll bring it back to you next week then.
Perfect, thank you.
Thank you.
Next item, pay and policy adjustments, County Administrator Philip Smith Haynes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This item is to go ahead and implement a couple of decisions that the Commission has made previously. It gets a little bit confusing when we're talking about multiple budget years. Most of what we talk about these days is the budget for 2020, but this item is actually dealing with our budget for 2019. Last summer, when the budget was approved, there was money put aside for employee pay adjustments, but there was not specificity on how those would be implemented. At the end of the year, that got referred to the new Wage and Benefits Committee. They came back with a recommendation, which was adopted by your commission on February 4th. And at that time, I noted we would have to come back closer to the date of implementation with actual adjustments to the budget, as well as a resolution, because the salaries for the elected officials are set by resolution. So that is the item for this evening. In addition, your commission had previously directed that we make a change to the county's personnel policy to amend the number of hours that are necessary for full-time employment. That would allow for, in next year's budget, a reduction in cost without doubly penalizing employees, where they would have a reduction in their hours and then also a reduction in benefits. So that is the item this evening, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
You both had time to review it? Yes. Butch, any questions?
No, I really don't have any.
Very well put together, Phil. I went through it about 3 times, and thank you for everything you did with that. Dustin, any questions?
No, none from me. I think this is a good give and take as far as figuring out the budget and allowing to run a few less hours, save a little money, but not to the least amount of detriment to staff. I think this was good, aggressive ideas that were brought to us, and I'm glad that we had that thought process from some of the leaders in the county.
No further questions or discussion. I'll ask for a motion.
I move that the commission approve the budget adjustments and revised personnel policy as presented by staff, adopt resolution number 2019-07, and direct the clerk to publish the resolution.
Do we have a second?
I second that motion.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries 3-0. Next, we'll go on to County Councilor, Mr. Bill Jeter.
County Councilor Bill Jeter. I don't have a report, although we do need 3 executive sessions.
Yes, sir. Move on to County Administrator Report. Philip Smith Haynes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. County Administrator Philip Smith Haynes. I do not have a report this evening.
County Commissioner Reports. Dustin.
I have a few things to report on. I was a member of the first Leadership Kansas class, and we were in Garden City the last few days of last week. So really neat. I got to sit down for a while with the president of the Board of Regents who's in my class, Blake Flanders. We got to hear a talk by Cecil O'Brate, which was intriguing and neat. We toured a dairy, we toured a feed yard, and we toured the Tyson meat packing plant. Got to see Garden City's giant high school and sat in there for a while. Also had a discussion at that meeting with Alan Cobb again about the Northwest Corridor project. He's planning to get us a letter of recommendation that we can use for our build grant, so I should have that in the next few days. It was a fun and interesting session. Garden City is an incredibly diverse community. They don't just embrace diversity, they encourage it. And so it's neat to see that culture, the positives and the negatives that they endure from such a diverse culture, but mostly positive. And so that was a neat thing. I also wanted to say it's promising to see the number of candidates who filed today to run for the respective school boards and cities. I was a little concerned coming into the day that we might be low on numbers, but it sounds like quite a few came through, and so we should have a good pick of great people to help lead those respective communities and school boards. I did a little bit of a county tour on Memorial Day with one of the young local entrepreneurs, and we discussed a little bit of the Northwest Corridor project and drove around it, and it seems like everybody's commitment to that is pretty obvious right when they drive the road. You take them one time on it, and it's just seems really obvious that this is something that needs to be done, and so I'm excited about the getting going on it, especially, speaking with the president of the Kansas Chamber of Commerce, for him to just kind of go, just do it. I mean, this is something that needs to be done. That's the kind of thing that makes me more and more confident that this is going to benefit all of us in Ellis County, and all of Northwest Kansas, I think, as far as getting through our county. So, that's all I have.
Thank you, Dustin. Butch?
I attended the Northwest Kansas Planning and Development meeting last Wednesday. Still having discussions about the tentative reduction in membership that we penciled into the budget. I think we reduced from 38,000 to 22,000. And they did check with legal about that issue, and there's no violation of any law that they could find, but legal told them it's just how strictly they want to enforce their bylaws. And at this time, they've taken no action as the board. And it's hard to read how strictly they want to enforce their bylaws. Some want to strictly enforce it, so other counties don't slide down that same path, and I think some are more willing to be a little bit loose with the bylaws. So next week, Mr. Harabi will be here to present his issue on this, and we can question him further.
Thank you, Butch. I just had one meeting, K-Works. We had our board meeting via conference call this time, lasted 30 minutes, and had a lot of discussion about all the job vacancies in western Kansas, and they're looking at a lot of avenues how to try to fill all the vacancies, and there's a lot of ideas out there, but no solutions yet, so I guess we'll see what happens going forward. We have another meeting Thursday again via conference call, so see how that goes. That's all I had. Next item, we have 3 executive sessions. I don't know if it doesn't matter which one we go first with. Probably doesn't, does it?
I would make a motion, we go into executive session to discuss acquisition of real estate for the expansion of the landfill. Session shall include the Board of Commissioners, Administrator Phil, Councilor Jeter, and Bill Ring, and for approximately 20 minutes.
10 or 15 will be plenty.
Oh, okay, 10 minutes.
10 will be fine.
10
Second
minutes.
that motion.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Okay, then I want to make a motion to go into executive session for attorney-client privilege regarding potential litigation. In the executive meeting, we will have the Board of Commissioners, Administrator Phil, Counselor Jeter, and Bill Ring for 20 minutes.
Second that motion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. So carried. No action, Donna.
Thank you.
One more time.
Okay, I make a motion that the board goes into executive session under attorney-client privilege for pending litigation. The board, Administrator Phil and Counselor Jeter will be at the meeting for 10 minutes, 7 minutes.
Should only take
He
5.
said 6.5. You
Yeah,
weren't paying attention.
that's right, Bill said 6.5. We'll go with 7. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Okay. kind of give them a little extra to cover that.
No action. We will adjourn at 6:25.